Everyone tells you the secret to wealth is saying yes. Yes to opportunities. Yes to connections. Yes to every meeting, every project, every favor asked of you at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. The hustle culture gospel preaches it like scripture. The more you say yes, the more doors open. The more you show up, the more you get. Work harder, stay longer, be available, be agreeable, be everything to everyone. That is the most expensive lie ever sold to ambitious people. The truth, the uncomfortable, counterintuitive, mathematically provable truth, is that your ability to say no is the single highest returning investment you will ever make. Not your stock portfolio, not your real estate, not your side hustle. Your no. A well-placed, clearly delivered, unapologetic no generates returns that compound faster than any asset class on earth. And almost nobody teaches this, because the people who benefit from your yes have no incentive to tell you. Think about a black hole, not as a metaphor for despair, as a metaphor for power. A black hole is the most efficient energy converter in the known universe. It takes everything that comes near it and either absorbs it completely or uses gravitational force to redirect it. Nothing enters a black hole accidentally. Nothing escapes without purpose. The black hole does not apologize for its gravity. It does not explain itself to passing asteroids. It simply exists with such concentrated mass and such defined boundaries that the laws of physics themselves bend around it. That is what a person who has mastered the art of no looks like from the outside. Concentrated, dense with purpose, surrounded by a gravitational field that pulls in only what belongs and deflects everything else. The people who cannot say no are diffuse, spread thin across the universe like cosmic dust, present everywhere, powerful nowhere. You have met both types. You know exactly which one you want to be. But here is what nobody explains. The inability to say no is not a character flaw. It is not weakness. It is not a lack of discipline or backbone. It is biology. It is mathematics. It is a series of interlocking systems that were designed by evolution, by culture, by the people who profit from your compliance, to make yes feel safe and no feel dangerous. Understanding these systems is the first step to escaping them, not through willpower, through physics. Your brain runs on a currency called dopamine. Every time you say yes to a request, your brain releases a small hit of it. The approval of another person, their smile, their gratitude, their relief, triggers the same neural pathway as a bite of sugar or a notification on your phone. This is not a metaphor. This is measurable neurochemistry. A 2012 study published in the Journal of Neuroscience demonstrated that social approval activates the ventral striatum, the same reward center that lights up during financial gain and drug use. Your brain literally cannot tell the difference between being liked and being paid. Both feel like winning. So when you say yes to the project you do not have time for, you are not being generous. You are feeding an addiction. You are chasing a dopamine hit that costs you hours, energy, and opportunity. And like every addiction, the tolerance builds. The hit gets smaller. You need more yeses to feel the same relief. More meetings, more favors, more availability. The cycle accelerates. The cost compounds. And you wonder why, despite working constantly, you never seem to get ahead. This is the approval tax. Every yes you give to avoid discomfort is a tax on your future. Not a metaphorical tax, a literal one. If your time is worth $100 an hour and you spend 3 hours on a project that serves someone else's agenda, you have paid $300 in approval tax. You did not write a check. You did not feel the money leave, but it left. It left in the form of hours you will never recover, energy you will never reclaim, and mental bandwidth that could have been directed towards something that actually moves your life forward. The wealthy understand this intuitively. They guard their time with the same ferocity they guard their capital, because time is capital, the most non-renewable form of it that exists. Warren Buffett has said, publicly and repeatedly, that the difference between successful people and very successful people is that very successful people say no to almost everything. Not some things, almost everything. This is not a personality quirk. This is a portfolio strategy. Every yes is an investment of your most finite resource. Every no is a decision to keep that resource available for a higher returning opportunity. The math is not complicated. The execution is brutal. Because the approval tax does not just cost you time, it costs you identity. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you send your nervous system a message. Your needs are less important than their comfort. Repeat that message enough times, and your nervous system believes it. And a nervous system that believes its needs are secondary will never build anything primary. Now consider the gravitational physics of this. A black hole does not lose mass by refusing to absorb certain particles. It gains density. Every no it delivers makes it more concentrated, more powerful, more itself. The same is true for you. Every no you give to something misaligned with your purpose is not a loss. It is a gain in density, a gain in gravitational pull. The people, opportunities, and resources that are right for you are attracted to concentrated people, not diffuse ones, not available for anything ones. The ones who know exactly what they are and exactly what they are not. But the approval tax is only the first mechanism. There is a second one, deeper and more insidious, that operates below the level of conscious awareness. Researchers at Stanford University conducted a series of experiments in the 1990s that revealed something they called ego depletion. The finding that willpower and decision-making draw from a finite cognitive resource that depletes with use. Every decision you make, regardless of its size, costs something. Every time you evaluate a request, weigh the pros and cons, feel the social pressure, and then decide, you spend cognitive currency. And like any currency, when it runs out, your judgment degrades. This is the decision drain. And it is why the people who cannot say no do not just lose time, they lose the quality of every decision they make afterward. Barack Obama wore the same style of suit every day. Mark Zuckerberg built a wardrobe of identical gray t-shirts. Steve Jobs had his uniform. These are not eccentricities. These are cognitive conservation strategies. By eliminating trivial decisions, they preserved their decision-making capacity for the choices that actually mattered. They understood, intuitively or explicitly, that the brain is not a limitless processor. It is a battery, and every unnecessary yes drains it. Think about the last time you agreed to something you did not want to do. Not just the time it cost you. Think about the mental residue it left, the low-grade resentment, the distraction during other tasks, the energy spent managing your own frustration. That residue is real. It has a measurable cognitive cost. A 2010 study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that unresolved commitments, things we have agreed to but not yet completed, occupy what researchers call open loops in working memory. These open loops consume cognitive resources continuously, even when you are not actively thinking about them. Every yes you give to something you do not want to do opens a loop, and open loops are expensive. They are the cognitive equivalent of running 30 browser tabs simultaneously. your processing speed drops, your creativity diminishes, your ability to focus on what matters degrades, and you wonder why you feel exhausted despite doing nothing that feels meaningful. The wealthy close loops aggressively. They say no early, clearly, and without excessive explanation, precisely because they understand the cost of open loops. They are not being rude. They are being efficient. They are practicing cognitive hygiene with the same discipline that elite athletes practice physical hygiene, because they know that the quality of their thinking is their primary competitive advantage, and anything that degrades that quality is a threat to their bottom line. The black hole does not accumulate debris. It processes what serves its mass and deflects everything else. Clean, efficient, powerful. There is a third mechanism that operates not in your brain, but in your social ecosystem, and it is perhaps the most mathematically elegant of all. Network theory, the branch of mathematics that studies how connections between nodes affect the behavior of systems, has a concept called the 80-20 principle, or more formally, the Pareto distribution. In most complex systems, roughly 20% of inputs generate roughly 80% of outputs. 20% of customers generate 80% of revenue. 20% of employees produce 80% of results. 20% of your relationships generate 80% of your joy, growth, and opportunity. This is the energy asymmetry, and it means that the people and projects in your life are not created equal. Some of them are multipliers. They amplify your energy, expand your thinking, open doors you did not know existed. And some of them are drains. They consume your resources, contract your thinking, and close doors by occupying the space where better things could grow. The mathematics are brutal and non-negotiable. If you cannot say no to the drains, you will never have enough left for the multipliers. It is not a question of effort. It is a question of allocation. Consider a concrete example. A mid-level marketing professional, let us call her Sarah, was known in her office as the person who never said no. Need someone to cover a shift? Sarah. Need someone to join a committee that meets every Thursday at 7 a.m. Sarah. Need someone to review your presentation at 10 p.m. Sarah. She was universally liked. She was also perpetually exhausted, chronically underpaid, and quietly furious. She had no time for the online course she wanted to take, no energy for the side project she had been planning for 3 years, no bandwidth for the relationships that might have actually advanced her career. She was fully invested in other people's agendas and completely bankrupt in her own. The people who were advancing around her were not working harder. They were allocating better. They were saying no to the 80% that generated noise, and yes to the 20% that generated signal. They were not more talented. They were more selective. And selectivity, in a world drowning in demands on your attention, is a superpower. The gravitational physics apply here too. A black hole does not try to absorb the entire universe. It absorbs what comes within its event horizon, the boundary defined by its own mass and purpose. Everything outside that boundary continues on its trajectory. The black hole does not chase it, does not apologize for not chasing it, does not feel guilty that some distant asteroid is floating away unabsorbed. It simply maintains its boundary and lets the physics do the work. Your no is your event horizon. It is the boundary that defines what enters your life and what does not. And the clearer and more consistently you maintain it, the more powerful the gravitational field you create around your actual purpose. But here is where it gets psychologically complex. Because the energy asymmetry is not just about time and cognitive resources. It is about identity contamination. This is the fourth mechanism, and it is the one that most people never see coming. Psychologists have known for decades that humans are profoundly social creatures whose sense of self is constructed, in large part, through their relationships and environments. You are not just influenced by the people around you, you are partially constituted by them. Their beliefs, their habits, their emotional states, their relationship with risk and ambition, these things do not just affect you, they become part of you. This is the proximity principle, and it operates with the same mathematical inevitability as compound interest. Jim Rohn famously said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This is not motivational poetry. It is a description of a neurological process. Mirror neurons, the cells in your brain that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing it, mean that you are literally simulating the mental states of the people around you, constantly, automatically, without conscious awareness. Spend enough time around people who believe that financial security is impossible, that ambition is arrogance, that the system is rigged and effort is futile, and those beliefs will begin to feel like your own. Not because you are weak, because you are human. Because your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do, absorbing the social environment and using it to calibrate your own behavior. The problem is that this calibration process does not distinguish between environments that serve your growth and environments that undermine it. It just absorbs, constantly, automatically. This is why the inability to say no to toxic relationships is not just emotionally costly. It is cognitively and financially costly. Every hour you spend in the gravitational field of someone whose relationship with possibility is contracted is an hour your own sense of possibility is being quietly compressed. You do not notice it happening. That is the insidious part. You just notice, months or years later, that your ambitions have gotten smaller. Your risk tolerance has decreased. Your sense of what is possible for you has quietly, invisibly shrunk. And you cannot point to a single moment when it happened, because it did not happen in a single moment. It happened in the accumulated weight of 1,000 small exposures, each one individually negligible, collectively transformative. The wealthy say no to these relationships not because they are cold or elitist. They say no because they understand the physics. They understand that proximity is not neutral, that every relationship is either expanding your gravitational field or contracting it. And they have decided, consciously, deliberately, sometimes painfully, that they cannot afford the contraction. The black hole does not apologize for its event horizon. It does not feel guilty that some particles cannot cross it. It simply maintains the boundary that allows it to remain what it is. There is a fifth mechanism, and it is the one that ties all the others together. It operates at the level of signal and noise, at the level of how opportunities actually find you in a complex, information-saturated world. This is the scarcity signal, and understanding it will change the way you think about your own value. In economics, scarcity creates value. This is not a controversial statement. It is the foundational principle of price theory. When something is rare, it is worth more. When something is abundant, it is worth less. This applies to commodities, to real estate, to art, and it applies with equal mathematical precision to human attention and availability. When you are available for everything, you signal that your time has no particular value. Not because you are not valuable, but because availability is the market signal for low cost. Think about it from the perspective of the person making the request. If they know you will say yes to almost anything, they do not need to offer you much in return. Your yes is cheap. It is abundant. It is always there. There is no urgency to compensate you fairly, to respect your boundaries, to bring you their best opportunities rather than their overflow. You are the discount bin. Always stocked, always accessible, always underpriced. Now think about the person who says no frequently and selectively. Their yes is rare. Their attention is scarce. When they agree to something, it carries weight because everyone knows it was chosen from a field of alternatives. Their time is priced at a premium, not because they declared it so, but because their behavior demonstrated it. The market responded accordingly. Better opportunities, better compensation, better relationships. Not because they worked harder, because they created scarcity. This is not manipulation. This is physics. This is the same principle that makes diamonds more valuable than water, despite water being infinitely more necessary for survival. Scarcity is a signal, and your no is the mechanism by which you create it. A concrete illustration. Two consultants with identical skills and identical track records. The first says yes to every project that comes his way. He is always busy, always available, always grateful for the work. His rates are reasonable. His clients like him. He is comfortable. The second says no to roughly 70% of the projects she is offered. She is selective about industries, about clients, about project scope. She has a waiting list. Her rates are 3 times higher than his. Her clients treat her differently, with more respect, more preparation, more seriousness, because they know that her attention was not easily obtained. Same skills, same experience, radically different outcomes. The difference is not talent, it is scarcity management. The gravitational physics are perfect here. A black hole with a clearly defined event horizon has enormous gravitational pull, precisely because it is not trying to absorb everything. Its selectivity is the source of its power. Diffuse matter, spread thin across space, has almost no gravitational pull at all. Concentration creates gravity. Selectivity creates concentration. No creates selectivity. Now, understanding the mechanisms is necessary but not sufficient, because the real barrier to saying no is not intellectual. You already know on some level that you should say no more often. You have known it for years. The barrier is emotional. It is the fear of what happens when you do. The fear of disappointing people. The fear of missing out. The fear of being seen as difficult, selfish, or arrogant. The fear that the opportunity you decline will be the one that would have changed everything. These fears are real. They are not irrational. They are the product of the same biological and social systems we have been discussing. And they need to be addressed, not with willpower, but with a reframe. The fear of disappointing people is the approval tax in its most acute form. It is the belief that your value to others is contingent on your compliance, that if you stop being useful in the way they want, they will stop valuing you. This belief is worth examining carefully, because the relationships that depend on your inability to say no are not relationships. They are transactions, and you are always on the losing side of them. The people who genuinely value you, who see your worth beyond your availability, will not disappear when you say no. They will respect you more, because people who have their own strong sense of value recognize and respect it in others. The ones who leave when you establish boundaries were never really there for you. They were there for your yes. And losing access to your yes is not a loss. It is a clarification. The fear of missing out, FOMO in the contemporary vernacular, is perhaps the most mathematically confused of all the fears, because it assumes that the opportunity you are declining is better than the opportunity you are creating by declining it. This is almost never true. The opportunity you decline is known. Its value is visible, if limited. The opportunity you create by protecting your time and energy is unknown, but its potential is unbounded. Every no you give to something mediocre is a yes to something excellent that has not yet arrived. You cannot see it yet, but the physics guarantee it. Concentrated, purposeful, selective people attract concentrated, purposeful, selective opportunities. It is not magic. It is gravity. The fear of being seen as difficult is the most socially conditioned of the fears, and it is worth addressing directly. There is a cultural narrative, particularly powerful for women but present for everyone, that equates agreeableness with virtue. That says a good person is an available person, a helpful person, a person who does not make others uncomfortable by declining their requests. This narrative is not neutral. It serves the interests of everyone who benefits from your compliance. It is a story told by people who need your yes to maintain their own comfort and convenience. And it has been so thoroughly internalized by so many people that it feels like a moral truth rather than a social construction. It is not a moral truth. It is a mechanism of control. And recognizing it as such is the first step to freedom from it. The research on this is unambiguous. A 2018 meta-analysis published in the Journal of Applied Psychology examined the relationship between agreeableness, the personality trait associated with compliance and conflict avoidance, and financial outcomes across multiple studies and populations. The finding was consistent and striking. Agreeableness is negatively correlated with income. Not because agreeable people are less competent, but because they are less likely to negotiate, less likely to decline undervalued work, less likely to establish the boundaries that signal high value. The most financially successful people in the study were not the most agreeable. They were the most selectively agreeable, capable of warmth and generosity within clearly defined boundaries, but unwilling to extend those qualities indiscriminately. This is the distinction that matters. Saying no is not the same as being cold. It is not the same as being selfish. It is not the same as being difficult. It is the same as being a black hole, concentrated, purposeful, and powerful enough to choose what enters your gravitational field and what does not. The warmth is still there. The generosity is still there. But it is directed, intentional, chosen, and therefore infinitely more valuable to you and to the people who receive it. Now let us talk about the practical mechanics, because understanding the theory is one thing. Executing it in the moment, when someone is looking at you expectantly, when the social pressure is real and immediate, when your nervous system is screaming that no is dangerous, is another thing entirely. The first practical principle is what behavioral economists call the pre-commitment strategy. This is the practice of making decisions about your boundaries before you are in the situation where they will be tested, before the request arrives, before the social pressure is active, before your dopamine system is already primed by the approval of the person asking. Decide in advance, what categories of requests will you decline automatically? What types of projects are outside your scope? What kinds of relationships are incompatible with your goals? Write them down. Make them explicit. Because a decision made in advance, in a calm and rational state, is far more likely to be executed correctly than a decision made in the moment, under social pressure, with your reward circuitry firing. Warren Buffett uses a version of this strategy that he calls the 25/5 rule. Write down your top 25 goals. Circle the top 5. The remaining 20, the ones that did not make the top 5, are not your secondary priorities. They are your avoid at all costs list. Because they are compelling enough to attract your attention, but not important enough to justify the cost of your focus. They are the most dangerous category of yes, the ones that feel productive but are actually just sophisticated forms of distraction. The pre-commitment strategy turns your no from a reactive decision into a proactive policy, and policies are far easier to maintain than individual decisions made under pressure. The second practical principle is the language of no. Because how you say no matters, not for the other person's comfort, but for your own nervous system. A no, delivered with excessive apology and explanation, sends your brain the same message as a yes, that the other person's needs are more important than yours. It keeps the loop open. It invites negotiation. It signals that the boundary is permeable. A clean no, direct, warm, and without excessive justification, closes the loop. It signals that the boundary is real. It allows both parties to move forward without ambiguity. The formula is simple: acknowledge, decline, redirect. I appreciate you thinking of me. This is not something I can take on right now. I hope you find the right person for it. 3 sentences. No apology, no lengthy explanation, no invitation to negotiate. The acknowledgement is genuine. You do appreciate being considered. The decline is clear. Not, I am not sure, or maybe later, but a definitive no. The redirect is generous. You are not abandoning them. You are pointing them toward a solution that does not involve you. This formula works because it is honest, it is complete, and it does not leave open loops in either party's working memory. The third practical principle is the 24-hour rule. Before saying yes to any significant request, any commitment of more than a few hours, any relationship investment, any project that will occupy meaningful space in your life, give yourself 24 hours. Not to deliberate endlessly, to let the initial social pressure dissipate and allow your actual judgment to operate. The dopamine hit of approval fades within hours. The clarity that follows is your real assessment of the opportunity. If, after 24 hours, the yes still feels right, give it. If it does not, you have your answer. And you have given it without the distortion of immediate social pressure. This rule is particularly powerful for the category of requests that arrive with artificial urgency. I need to know by end of day. This opportunity closes tomorrow. If you cannot commit now, I will have to find someone else. These urgency signals are almost always manufactured. Real opportunities, the ones that are genuinely right for you, do not evaporate in 24 hours. The ones that do were never really opportunities. They were pressure tactics. And the 24-hour rule exposes them for what they are. The fourth practical principle is what I call the opportunity cost audit. Before saying yes to anything, ask one question. What am I saying no to by saying yes to this? Not abstractly, specifically. If I spend 3 hours on this project, what 3 hours am I not spending? If I invest energy in this relationship, what relationship am I not investing in? If I take on this client, what client am I not taking on? The yes is always visible. The no it creates is always invisible. The opportunity cost audit makes it visible. And once you can see the full cost of your yes, not just the immediate benefit, but the hidden no it generates, your decision-making changes fundamentally. This is how the wealthy think about time. Not as a resource to be spent, but as a portfolio to be managed. Every allocation has an opportunity cost. Every yes forecloses a no. And the question is never just, is this good? But, is this the best use of this resource, given all available alternatives? That question, asked consistently, applied rigorously, is the difference between a life that feels busy and a life that feels purposeful. The fifth practical principle is the most counterintuitive of all. Practice saying no to things you want. Not as an exercise in deprivation, as an exercise in agency. The ability to decline something desirable, a tempting project, an interesting invitation, a flattering request, is the proof that your no is a choice and not a compulsion. It is the demonstration to yourself and to your nervous system that you are operating from abundance rather than scarcity. That you are not saying yes because you are afraid of what happens if you do not. That you are saying yes because you have genuinely chosen it from a field of alternatives. This practice builds what psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief in your own capacity to execute your intentions. And self-efficacy, more than talent or intelligence or opportunity, is the primary predictor of long-term achievement. People with high self-efficacy set more ambitious goals, persist longer in the face of obstacles, and recover more quickly from setbacks. And one of the most reliable ways to build it is to demonstrate to yourself repeatedly that you can do what you say you will do, including saying no when you mean no. The black hole does not absorb things accidentally. Every particle that crosses its event horizon was chosen by the physics of its own mass and purpose. That is not passivity. That is the most active form of agency in the universe. Let us return to the mathematics one final time, because the compounding effect of a consistent no practice is not linear. It is exponential. And exponential growth is almost impossible for the human brain to intuit correctly. Consider this. If you reclaim just 1 hour per day from unnecessary yeses, 1 hour that you redirect toward your highest value work, your most important relationships, your own development, what does that compound to over time? 1 hour per day is 365 hours per year. That is more than 9 full 40-hour work weeks. 9 weeks of focused, purposeful, high-quality work that currently does not exist in your life because it is occupied by the accumulated weight of your unnecessary yeses. Now compound that over 5 years, over 10. The mathematics becomes staggering, not because of the hours themselves, but because of what those hours, directed with intention and focus, can build. This is the compounding return on NUM. It does not show up immediately. The first no feels like a loss. The second feels uncomfortable. The third feels slightly less uncomfortable. By the 100th, it feels like breathing. And by then, the compounding has already begun. The time you have reclaimed has already started generating returns. The cognitive bandwidth you have freed has already started producing better decisions. The gravitational field you have created has already started attracting better opportunities. The identity you have built, the identity of someone who knows their value and acts accordingly, has already started commanding better compensation, better relationships, better everything. This is not a metaphor. This is the mechanism. This is the physics. And the physics do not care about your feelings about it. They operate whether you understand them or not. The only question is whether you are going to use them or be used by them. The door is already open. It has always been open. It is the door marked no. The one that everyone walks past because it looks like it leads to loss. It does not. It leads to the only thing that actually matters, a life built from your choices rather than other people's needs. A portfolio of yeses that are genuinely yours, a gravitational field so concentrated and so purposeful that the right things, the right people, the right opportunities, the right version of your own life cannot help but be drawn into it. The black hole does not chase the universe. The universe bends toward it. You already have the mass. You already have the purpose. The only thing standing between you and the gravity you are capable of generating is the willingness to let your no be as powerful as your yes. Say it clearly. Say it without apology. Say it like someone who understands the physics. The universe will adjust accordingly.